What's going on, guys, and welcome to Who to Sign For. Now in this series I'm giving you my recommendations on what players to sign for a specific team in career mode. But before we go on, I will say that the signings you'll see aren't designed to be realistic, which is very important, especially in this one, and that the player ratings and potentials may vary depending on what database you're using and how they perform for you during the season. You don't have to follow all the tips. This is really just a set of guidelines to give you a hand if you're stuck for ideas and want some suggestions on what players you could sign for a certain club. This is mainly aimed at those of you out there who may be new to the game and just want some help, or for those of you out there who may be stuck for ideas on what players you could sign for a certain team in career mode. So today, guys, we are going to take a look at who to sign for a Spurs career mode. My last one was with Bayern Munich. I thought I'd return to England for this one and sort of alternate between the European leagues and, of course, the one which I'm more familiar with, which is the Premier League. So today we're going to take a look at Spurs, who, of course, knocked out the Champions League on Tuesday night after their defeat to Monaco, take on Chelsea tomorrow evening. Going to take a look at the boys from White Hart Lane. Now, Spurs start off with a £58.75 million transfer budget, and of course they've got a pretty decent team to begin with as well, Spurs, and their aims in the first season are these on the screen right now. Now, as per usual, we don't really focus on the off-the-pitch stuff, but the on-the-pitch objectives for Spurs in the first season in the Champions League, they're supposed to reach the quarter-final, so do better than what they've done this season, and in the domestic aims, they've got to finish in the top four in the Premier League and to reach the final of the FA Cup. So £58.75 million their budget, a good team, and those three aims right there, no silverware required in the first season, that's more than doable. Yeah, that's more than doable. They've got a really good team, some very good players in there, and what you'll notice with Spurs as well is they've got a lot of young talent too. It's a really awesome team to begin a career mode with, because you can improve it right from the first season, and I'll show you how as well, but it's got a great team with lots of young talent too, which you can nurture and develop, and in years to come, where these players hit their full potential, this will be a really amazing, unstoppable Spurs team. So this is their squad report. You see how it's lined up to begin with as well. I sort of just changed it a little bit to make it, well, a bit tidier, I suppose, in the squad setup. You can see how the squad looks right here, and again, you will notice lots and lots of young players. Their oldest player is Hugo Lloris in their early 30s, so that gives you an indication of how many good young players they have. They've got some good mid-20 players as well for age 2, and a couple players out on loan right now, which we'll discuss in just a moment's time. And one of the luxuries too with starting with Spurs is they don't really have any contract problems in the first season. Now, when I do these who to sign for, I show you the contract section and I show you one or two first team players that have their deals that come the end of the year. With Spurs, they have no one. No player in the first team has their deal up come the end of the year. They've got some random fringe players and squad players and young players too, but I wouldn't give a contract to anyone. Possibly Nathan Adua, if you want to give him one, because he's got 5-star skills and he's a young English talent, but he only has 75 potential, so not the best. He'll only be a squad player for you at full potential, so I would let all of those guys go and not worry about contracts in the first season. So a real luxury for you in the first year not to worry about contract problems. Now, for players loaned out, I briefly touched on it there are a couple. There are 3 players out on loan, Clinton Njai or Ng, Nabil Bentaleb, and also Federico Fazio as well. Now, we'll discuss Njai or Ng in just a moment's time, but as for Fazio, I would recall him. He's 29 years old, he's not going to grow any ratings out on loan, and he's still good enough to play some sort of role in your first season. So recall Fazio, he won't cost you much, and he may not be the best centre-back. He'll probably be a 4th choice for you, but he's not worth keeping out on loan. He's not going to develop out on loan, not going to grow any ratings. You may as well bring him back for squad depth and cover. Now, for signings with Spurs, this is the guy I would go in for as your main target. Now, of course, you start off with a £58.7 million budget to begin with. You're probably sitting there thinking, why would you sign this guy on the screen right now? Because A, it's unrealistic, obviously, and B, you're going to spend most, if not all of your budget on the guy. Well, as I said at the start of the series, this is not, start of the episode even, the start of every episode in the series, this is not a series where I do realistic transfers. If you're after realistic signings for a Spurs career mode, this is not the video for you. I don't care about realism in career mode. It's cool if you do, but it's not my sort of thing. But this is the guy I'll go after, despite the fact it would cost pretty much your entire budget. David Alaba of Bayern Munich, 24 years old, 87 overall, Austrian left back that of course can play pretty much anywhere on the pitch. And you're probably sitting there thinking, oh god, not again. Alaba seems to appear in almost every who to sign for right now. I know. But you know, the truth of the matter is this guy is one of my favourite players in FIFA because of the fact he's just so versatile. The guy can play literally anywhere on the pitch. He is absolutely monstrous in his stats. A really awesome player. Starts off 87 overall, grows to 90 when at his full potential. Just an absolute monster. And like in every who to sign for right now, he's cost me £55 million. So that's pretty much the entire Spurs budget, but he's worth it. He really, really is. He can play every hour on the pitch. And when you looked at the Spurs squad as well, when I showed you the team management setting just before the menu, just before, not menu, the team, how it's set up, before we moved on, you would have seen how good it is, how strong it is, and how well balanced it is. Well, I would still bring in David Alaba because he can play literally anywhere on the pitch, and the left back role right now belongs to Danny Rose. Still a very good player. It's 80 overall, grows to an 82 for potential. Ben Davies, 78 overall, I think it is, with 82 potential. Not bad, but that left back area could still be improved, and David Alaba would improve it and then some. He's a really awesome player, and I'll definitely recommend bringing the guy in. So it will cost you most of your budget. You're probably sitting there thinking, well, is that the video over then? You signed David Alaba, you spend all your money on him, and that's it. Well, no, and here's the reason why. You got fringe players to sell on with their contracts up coming to the end of the year. These guys aren't going to get new deals, you might as well sell them. And then you start selling players that may still have a role in the Spurs team right now, but aren't the best and don't have the most amount of potential. One of those players is Kieran Trippier from Spurs. He used to play for Burnley. Very underrated right back at Burnley, I felt. He always played well at Turf Moor. A very decent right back, 25 years old, 77 overall, but you can get around 8 to 8.5 million pounds for Kieran Trippier. He starts off 77 overall, grows to 80 at his full potential. So you probably sit there and think, well, that's a pretty handy squad player to have, right? Well, you can do better than him. And now you start to see where the trend appears here in his Spurs career mode, because when you sign David Alaba, you won't have much money left over. How do you raise the funds? You sell on some first team players, and players that either aren't the best or aren't players that have too much of a long-term future. Another one of those players is this guy right here, Moussa Dembele, the Belgian. He was actually one of my favourite players back in the day. A really, really good player, I know, 82 overall, but 29 years old, Moussa Dembele. He's not going to get better, and of course when a player hits 30, there's a chance they'll decrease in stats. So sell on Moussa Dembele, sell on Kieran Trippier for, again, around 8.5 million pounds, and as you'll see, the money begins to gradually increase again as you get rid of a few players here that you're not either going to be using or players you have long-term replacements for in mind already. So with Dembele, we've got 26.5 million pounds for Atletico Madrid. From West Ham, 8.5 million pounds for Trippier. So in total, that's 35 million pounds for these boys. And again, even though they do have a role to play in the first team right away in the first season, Dembele's in the first 11, and Trippier, of course, is a handy squad player to have. 77 overall, 80 potential. You can do better than these guys. You can sign younger replacements, and they'll have higher potential as well. So once they both get sold and go out your club for a combined total of around 35 million pounds, you look to reinvest that money in replacements. And who do you look to bring in as replacements of Trippier and Dembele? A new right back and a new central midfielder. Well, how about these boys on my shortlist right here? Nelson Semedo of Benfica as the right back, 77 overall, 22 years old, valued at 7.5 million pounds. A very decent young talent, and also another Portuguese player playing for another Portuguese club, William Carvalho of Sporting, 83 overall, valued at 22 million pounds, just 24 years old, an absolutely brilliant player. These two guys are replacements for Semedo and Trippier as well, Trippier and Dembele even, show that you're not going to be taking a step back in quality, as Carvalho's one rating higher than Dembele, and Semedo's the same rating as Trippier. They'll have more potential than those guys, they're both younger, and one crucial thing to look at right here, just before we move on, is the salary they're on. You may not have noticed it, but it is unbelievable. Semedo is on about 10 grand a week, and William Carvalho, at 83 overall, 24 years old, is on a very tiny 14 grand a week. That's nothing. When you compare that to Trippier and Dembele, who just got sold out of your club, Trippier was on 62 grand a week, Dembele on about 97,000 pounds a week. Now that may sound fair enough for two pretty decent players, but these guys are getting paid peanuts compared to those two guys just got sold. These guys are getting absolutely no money whatsoever, and of course when you look to bring them in and want to agree a deal with the clubs here, you'll have to give them wage increases almost certainly, but as you'll see in just a moment's time, it's not a lot more thereafter. It really isn't. So you're selling Trippier and Dembele, who again were combining for around 150 grand a week or something like that, probably even more than that, think about it, probably about 155 grand a week. These guys for about, what, 20, 29, 30,000 pound a week? I don't know, my maths is terrible, but you know what I'm trying to say here. It's significantly less than the two guys you sold. Now, as you can see, Benfica accepted that bid of 9.5 million pound for Semedo. That's 2 million pound over his valuation. And again, look at his player demands for the salary, only 15 grand a week. Compare that to Trippier, that's about 47 grand a week less than what he was on. They're the same overall. Semedo is on a far cheaper salary. He's got more potential, and he's younger as well. And Carvalho too, putting a bit of 30 million pounds here, as you'll see in just a moment's time. That does get accepted, and Carvalho himself does doesn't want much more money either, as you'll see in just a moment's time, as that random left back got sold there to Grimsby Town for 150 grand there. As you see, Carvalho, £30 million, Sporting accept our bid, as Nelson Semedo would join the club as well for £9.5 million. Again, the fact of the matter is, once you sell those two players there, Trippier and Dembele, I do know you might want to keep them as they're good players, but again, the players you're bringing in are younger, they have more potential, and they're going to cost you less per week on the wages as well, which is only a good thing. So once Carvalho comes in too, as you see here, we get the bid accepted of £30 million. He only wants 20 grand a week, £20,000 a week. That's £77,000 a week less than what Dembele was on, who's 5 years older and a rating lower. So bringing Carvalho, it just makes sense because these guys have very decent potential as well. Semedo grows to an 85 and Carvalho to an 87 overall. This guy on a 5-year deal, getting to 29 years old, which is what Dembele was, on £77,000 a week less for 5 years. It just makes sense financially speaking, and when you think about the fact that Carvalho is one rating higher than Dembele, and of course Semedo is the same overall as Trippier, but does have more potential as well. So bringing these guys in as replacements for Trippier and Dembele, I'd recommend both of these replacements. They're really, really great players, and again, on low wages too. It's always handy. Cheapskate Docs, back at it again, I know, but it just makes sense. Bringing the guys in as replacements, very, very good players, and again, you're not taking a step back in quality either, because Semedo is the same overall as Trippier, and Carvalho is one rating higher, so definitely worth bringing in my opinion, even though you will have to spend a little bit more money, just a little bit more money than what you got for the sales of Dembele and Trippier. So those guys are in my replacements. And once you put those two guys in, you might sit there and think, well, would you spend any more money on any new players? We won't have much money left over after those two new signings, but I would recommend selling one 29-year-old player in your squad as well. The guy who, of course, we recalled from his loan spell, Federico Fazio, 78 overall. And again, I did say when I recalled him, very, very good squad player to have as a fourth choice centre-back, but you can do better. And just like you saw there with Dembele and Trippier, you can sign a younger replacement with more potential. So with Everton, they put in a bid for Fazio. They wouldn't budge on £5.5 million, which is lower than his valuation a little bit, I think, or is it his valuation? It might be valuation, actually. Yeah, it's his valuation, actually. They wouldn't budge on a valuation bid, but I said that's fair enough. Fazio doesn't need to get sold. You can keep him if you want, but as he's 29 years old, he's probably only got 1 or 2 years max before he starts to decrease. I'd look to sell him straight away, let him go to Goodison Park for his valuation, then look to bring in a replacement. Who would I sign? This guy right here, Alessio Romagnoli, 78 overall. Yes, he's one rating lower than Fazio, but 8 years younger, a very good young talent, playing for Milan right now at the San Siro. He's valued at £9.5 million. I tried to get a valuation bid to get accepted with Milan. Unfortunately, it did not work. I had to spend a little bit more money than I wanted to, but this guy is a very good young defender. Alessio Romagnoli starts off 78 overall, grows to 86 at his full potential. A very good player to have in your squad, and as a fourth choice centre-back, he's going to grow quietly in the background in your resis. A very decent player to have, and again, long-term replacement for someone like Jan Vertonghen. And when you'll have Toby Alderweireld, Kevin Wimmer and Romagnoli competing for those two centre-back slots, that's a very good position to be in. So Romagnoli in the end cost me, I think it was £12 million, which is quite a bit of money, I know, but he is 78 overall, to be fair, and only 21 years old. It's £2.5 million over his valuation, but I'd still recommend it. You don't have to do this if you don't want to, though. If you'd rather keep Fazio and then look for a new centre-back the next year, that's fair enough, but I still think if you can afford to do it in the first season, then do it straight away. You know, bring him in as soon as possible, because again, he's a really good defender, and I do believe some clubs try and snap him up in the first transfer window as well. So if you can get him, I definitely recommend it. Sell Fazio, bring in Romagnoli if you still got the cash left over on 45 grand a week. A very decent player to have, 5-year deal, and again, one rating lower than Fazio, so technically you are taking a step back, but you take steps forward in the future with his potential being 86 when he's at his full peak. So that would be that for new signings with Spurs, but I would possibly recommend doing one more thing if you want to. Clinton Njai, or Ng, who we talked about a bit earlier, is out on loan right now. Now, if you don't bring in a new third choice striker for Spurs, you might want to recall this guy for around 451 grand. He's 71 overall, and I do believe grows to 80 at his full potential, which isn't the best, but at Spurs right now, they only have 2 registered sort of primary strikers, if you will, in Harry Kane and Vincent Janssen, and some random other guy as well who's not too good. But Kane's 84 overall, grows to 90 at his potential as well. Vincent Janssen starts off in the high 70s, abilities, and I do believe has mid-80 potential as well. You'd probably be fine with those two strikers right there, as you'll most likely only play with one striker in the first in your formation in the first season with Spurs, which will be Harry Kane, and Janssen will come off the bench or alternate for cup games and whatnot. But if you wanted a third choice striker for cover, then just bring back Clinton Njai. 71 overall, but I do believe starts off 70 overall, and again 80 potential, not the best, but he's just there for cover really. If you want to bring him back, fair enough, otherwise just leave him out on loan. So those are the signings I would make for a Spurs career mode. So you spend around £106 million on 4 new players. It's a lot of money, it's an awful lot of money, but again, when you think about the long-term future with Spurs, all 4 of those players right there have really good potential. Alaba 90 potential, Carvalho 87, Romagnoli 86, and Semedo 85. I'd say they're all worth it. Now, of course, Spurs in the first season were supposed to qualify for the Champions League and the Premier League. They were also supposed to reach the quarterfinals of the Champions League and reach the cup final in the FA Cup. Well, as you can see in the Premier League, they won the title. They finished 9 points ahead of Manchester United, so they exceeded their expectations in the league, winning their first ever Premier League title. That's fantastic, so I exceeded that objective. In the FA Cup, sadly, I did fail though. As you can see, they didn't even make it onto the tournament tree. They were knocked out in the round of 32 stage by Middlesbrough, funnily enough, so that was a bit of a shame. I completely failed with that expectation there, not going to lie. And in the EFL Cup as well, that wasn't important, but I'll show you the tournament tree anyway. As you can see, they were knocked out by Peterborough United in the round of 16 stage. How about that? But in the Champions League, they were supposed to reach the quarterfinal, and as you can see, they went one step further, reached the semi-finals before being knocked out by Real Madrid. And I didn't advance long enough in the calendar to see who won that final. They were knocked out by Real Madrid in the semi-finals, so they exceeded their expectations in the Champions League and in the Premier League as well. They did fail their FA Cup objective, yes, but that's still a pretty good season in my opinion for Spurs, winning their first ever Premier League title. You weren't asked to win silverware, but I still managed to do it anyway, and also reaching the semi-finals of the Champions League too. Very, very impressive, going one step further than what the board asked, which is the quarterfinals. And of course, yes, the FA Cup was a bit of a failure, but other than that, not too bad in my opinion in the first season for Spurs. So once you sign those 4 players, you have a really successful first season. You are set up for a really, really awesome career with this Spurs team, because again, it's a good side with lots of young talent. And again, the 4 new signings coming in, Alaba and Carvalho, will go into the first 11 straight away. And as for Romagnoli and Semedo, those 2 guys will be waiting in the wings for when players like Jan Vertonghen and also Kyle Walker get on a little bit, and they're ready to step in and be the first choice players in the first team for right back and centre back as well. So those are the signings I would recommend making for a Spurs career mode, guys. I really do hope these tips have helped. And also as well, I would definitely recommend Spurs as a first career mode for you guys too. If you've never played the game mode before and you want to have your first career mode, I would say that Spurs are a very good team to begin with, again, with lots of young potential, with not too tough aims in the first season, and a decent starting budget as well. I would definitely say they're a fun team to begin with, and the boys from White Hart Lane can give you much success over the years in your career, again, with this really, really awesome team, which has so much groundwork laid down already, and with the new signings you would make as well. So hopefully you guys have enjoyed this video. If you have, then please do leave a like. Don't forget to comment in the comment section down below and tell me who you want to see next in the Who to Sign For series, and I'll upload another episode next Friday as well. So thank you very much for watching this episode. Hope you have enjoyed the tips, they did help as well. Don't forget to comment for the next team in the Who to Sign For series. Much love to you all. Have a great Friday evening, guys. Hope you've had a great week, and I'll see you for another video on my channel very soon.